a quick review. I think the source is we have Federal Constitutions and then Financial Procedures Act. Okay, and yes, okay, that's the basis. I think at least then you can appreciate the structure of the actual practice. When review is provided as well. Statement of consolidated revenue account, amount expected to be received and spent for the year, so as well as actual amount. So the budget is also been shown. And then statement of consolidated loan account showing receipt and expenditure of loan money, trust. I think regarding trust money, and also the categories, the types of trust account, right? And then a statement of asset and liabilities, the manner and assets are invested, or details of the liabilities will also be disclosed. All right. Okay, relevant treasury circulars. And we also will look at for statutory bodies, okay, what is the basis, the source or mandate for them to prepare the annual reports, okay? I think Saga, we look at that as well. Okay, now we look at, yeah, so this is a copy, yeah? I think I just share. Okay, I think the annual reports, there are two parts. Because they call it Federal Government Financial Statements. Federal Government Financial Statements. Yeah. Okay, Federal Government Financial Statements. So there are, I think in the same booklet, you have Malay version as well as English. So of course, for our discussion, we just look at the English section. Basically, translation. Translation. Right, are you with me, class? So 86 students.
Yes,
what
sir.
happened?
Yes, sir.
So many absent. Does anyone know, or do you know what happened to our students?
No, sir.
Busy for
Okay.
I, sir.
Share account, sir.
Huh? Oh, share account. Oh, you have session together.
Yes,
No.
sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. I'm
Hopefully
three
that's
people, sir.
good. Okay, good to know. Feel a bit relief. Okay, and so I guess we go through the statement of financial position, just like the balance sheet, right? So they have that, and then the content, the items. These are glossary, yeah. Okay, and then the second statement is statement of cash receipt and payments, and then they have also statement of financial performance. Okay. So, and you know that yeah, it's like that definitely, okay, because based on the reports, okay, this basically following the guidance from IPSB, okay. But the only thing is between these two, cash receipts and financial performance, because the basis of accounting is mainly cash. Cash accounting, so modified cash accounting. So of course, I mean, you have to review the entire things to be able to understand. Okay, cash receipt and payments. Of course, it's not directly similar to the private sector. Okay, this is basically designed for Malaysian government in the financial statements. And financial performance, still, okay, they have revenue and expenditures, but still the basis is cash accounting. Okay, and then I think they provide a reconciliation between these two. Why there are figures differences. I think that's quite good for you to be able to understand. Okay, because of transfer, because of what happened in the year, and then they also have, they call it statement of memorandum accounts, where they have memorandum of assets and memorandum of liabilities. Okay. Yeah, and notes to the financial statement. So these are the entire items in the federal government financial statements. Okay, the interesting part is, of course, statement of financial position is a cash base, cash receipt and payments, of course, cash base, financial performance, cash base. And then, of course, the requirements of the statutes require them to show the statement of assets and liabilities. Okay, I think both definitely as required by the standards also. They can show receivables and others, as if they, if they are prepared based on accrual accounting. But here, I think more on to meet the requirements of the statutes, what is required under Financial Procedures Act and the Constitution. Okay. I think that's the basis of, if you view in the reports, that's the basis of how the financial statements are being prepared, okay, to comply with the requirements of the law. And I would feel also that, it's because of parliamentary control, okay, they provide allocations, and to an extent that these allocations are being utilized. Okay, that's another concern. I think there's also a rising concern on the level of debts. Okay, so if you look at the memorandum of liabilities, okay, I think this is quite new. Maybe last time was the focus on federal debt and maybe other liabilities. But here they tried to make it a bit more comprehensive. They have federal debt, and then commitments, guarantees, okay, other liabilities, okay, they try to combine. That's why the level of debt of the government, depending on the definition, okay, that's why last time when there was a dispute between opposition and the government, okay, the government, the new government, the old government, and the new government. Last time, okay, there was a conflicting figures. The new government said that the level of debt liabilities is more than 1 trillion, but the old government says no, is below, and it still comply with the GDP ratio. And I think one way to explain that is related to definition, how they define. Okay, the other party, once they define differently, then of course you have different amount, right? But I think it's good to have that understanding, the level of commitments and debts. Okay, even guarantees, but sometimes the guarantees may not be possibly the risk is quite different as compared to outright debts. Okay, where there is maturity. Because government they issue these GII, GIA, and others. Okay, that's also source of debts. Another, I think, from our discussion, loans are basically taken by the government to fund mainly development projects, development budget. Okay, on top of that, there is a private finance initiative also give rise to liabilities to the government, and I think it's very similar to leasing. So that will, increase the level of liabilities. But then, of course, it's not presented in one financial statement or in the statement of financial position. Rather, it's been presented in the separate statements. So that's why I think for you to be able to see or to understand, because of in the cash accounting environment, to get some understanding on what's going on with the financial position of the government and financial performance, I think financial performance, because it's cash-based, cash receipt and cash payments, but there are differences because possibly due to transfer, recording. But then when you combine between financial position and memorandum accounts, maybe in that level, you can get more insights of what's happening in when we discuss on the financial position of the government. Because generally, when we talk about in the private sector, one of the key areas is it's like the leverage, debt ratio. Try to look at the risks of the entities or companies. In government, debt level is also an issue. But it's just that they have the mechanism to serve, to provide the debt. That's why debt service is part of budget. The amount of budget need to be provided. Of course, government the amount is huge. I think these are the the way for you to be able to look at issues. I think my discussion is at the government as a whole, whole government. We are not talking about annual reports or financial statements of agency. Agency you have to study separately also. I think it's good since you study and because for your assignment, because you have your own ministry and statutory bodies. I think it's more interesting at this point still because of cash environment. You choose a statutory body, because if it is department or ministries, they don't provide the details. Not much details are provided except what is being presented in these annual reports. With regards to their financial information. Whereas for statutory bodies, they have full scale of full set of the presentation of the financial statements complete. They have at the agency level. At the agency level, where I think generally they prepare based on it depends. It can be based on MPSAS or they can use MFRS depending on the nature of the statutory bodies. So have a quick look as well. I don't have the example. Maybe if you have the time, you can just try to find one or two. So that is the structure of the financial statements, right? And then there is a report, by the treasurer, accountants general. You can see that the secretary general of the treasury, and then the accountants general, Dr. Yaakob, also signing the report. Now we move to statement of financial position. Right, so you can see that you expect, of course, it should be assets, assets and liabilities, and I think generally our expectation of financial position, it should have asset, liabilities, and equity. But for government, because of the cash-based reporting, cash basis, they call it public monies. I think the word public money also mentioned in the Financial Procedures Act. So these are the balance. The balance in terms of cash and in terms of investments. So what is the total? 59 what? 2019 it was 59 million or billion or trillion? Class, can you see? I cannot see.
Yes, sir. Can see, sir.
59 what? Trillion, million, billion?
Billion, sir. Billion.
59 billion. These are balance.
Billion, yes.
Yeah, so still can be used in the next period, in next the following year. And then held for consolidated fund. So out of this 59 million, how much belong to revenue account Okay, the components of consolidated fund, revenue, loan, and trust account. So in this case, the big chunk, okay, you can see that revenue account is only 11 billion left. 16 billion loan, and consolidated trust is 31 billion. I mean, it's kind of a logical, okay, because generally consolidated revenue account, I think the whole amount of being collected as revenue will be used during the year, okay, to support the supply bill, charge expenditures, operating budgets, okay, as presented by supply bill, and also transfers to various trust accounts. So you can expect that trust account has the highest, okay. Similarly to the loan taken will be channeled to repayments of the loan, refinancing, or for the development. Okay, and development fund is in the trust account. We can expect that trust account should have the highest balance. Right, that's statement of financial position. Okay, I believe that very simple. Okay, huge amount. Okay, unlike private sector, okay, we have so many items in the balance sheet, but the amount is very small. But government, very, big cash basis, few items in the statement of financial position, but in amount to almost 60 billion. Okay, we move to the next statement of cash and receipt and payments. Okay. Receipts, I think all kind of receipts are considered, because this one is cash receipts, so revenue is included, loans, right? But bear in mind, you look at the notes, because all these notes are important to look at the details. So for cash and payment, the notes is on note 8, right? So revenue, I think you can expect the main one will be tax, and then following non-tax. I think for this, why non-tax also very huge, because I think there were, in 2019 it was special dividend by Petronas. Okay, that's why the amount also very big. And then loans, domestic loans. I think Malaysia, so you can see the level of loans. This one is cash receipts. So these are cash received from loans. Okay, so amounting of total under 31 billion. I think these are including for development projects, refinancing, okay, because I think government securities, okay, they have different maturities. So refinancing is also part of the mechanisms. That's why you can see a huge amount of collection, 131 billion. All right, and then they have others are quite small. I think another comment is on the loans. You can see that big chunk, almost 98% of the loan are domestic loans. In other words, the denomination of the loans will be in Malaysian ringgit or in foreign currency. Domestic loans will be the denomination of the loan is in ringgit or in foreign currency.
Ringgit.
Yes, in ringgit. Of course, I mean the investors they are not local. Okay, they are international investors, and also of course our investment companies. Because they can buy all these instruments through the dealers. I think there are panel banks as dealers for all these instruments. Okay, that's for loans. You can see that. I think that's the advantage of Malaysia, where the loans is in ringgit, so they can minimize the forex exposures. Okay, in that sense. All right, and in other words, when it is in ringgit, you can always, I mean, the government can always pay. There's another argument, but you can disagree with me. If it is in ringgit, then they can always print ringgit. But of course, I mean, money supply also is major areas that the central bank have to manage, because they cannot just printing the money. Okay, because they have to manage the liquidity. Otherwise, it will affect the ringgit rate. But at least there is an advantage. Except that I think in when PH came into power, they also issue, they call it what is that? Samurai bond. Samurai bond. What is that? Samurai bonds? Samurai bonds. Anyone? Samurai bonds. Okay, I think that is special arrangement with the Japanese government. Okay, they issue bonds in yen. Okay, but loan taken by Malaysian government. Okay, that's one. The other is I think through the Malaysian government also they promote sukuk. Okay, sukuk as one of the main instruments for liabilities. So sukuk, I think we are one of the biggest issuers of sukuk globally. I think Saudis and Malaysia, right? So government is definitely this one of biggest sukuk issuers. Okay, other loans, other receipts. If you look at international loans, all others are very small. Okay, foreign assistance, capital receipts, okay, trust receipt. These are receipts based on loan recoveries. If you remember that, okay, in the development projects, not only in the form of direct expenditure, but there are also loans given to government agencies or to entities supported by the government. These are, they call it capital receipts, loan recoveries. Then they have trust receipts based on, mainly here is on PFI. Okay, but the big chunk of the cash from two sources, one is revenue, the other is loans. Okay, and then we channel to other, I think as we discussed before in terms of structure and source of funds. So when it is presented in the financial statements, in this case it's statement of cash receipt and payments, I mean quite consistent with what our understanding is. Yes, agree? You agree or disagree? The statements of cash receipt and payment consistent with our understanding of the source of fund with regards to how to finance the government expenditures. Is it consistent? Agree or disagree?
Agree, sir.
Agree, yeah? Okay. Right, and then the payments, operating expenditures, I think that's a big chunk as budgeted. Of course, this one is actual. Actual, they provide actual. And emoluments, so big chunk, grants and fixed charges, I think quite consistent based on the budget. And then development expenditures, okay, direct, and then they also give loans. So mostly is direct, I think procurements, a big chunk of that also procurements. And loans is very like what, 5%, 8%. The rest what do you call it, payments for development. Right, and then repayments of the loans, 82 billion, foreign assistance, okay, because it is in the form of loans, there are repayments. Okay, capital expenditure, purchase of financial instruments. Okay, so why they doing that? Maybe we can look at the details, as well as payments for PFI. Okay, and others. Okay, others the trusts. Okay, quite big, 34 billion. All right, and at the end they have the cash balance. Okay, that's cash receipt and payments. With that, statement of financial performance. Okay, they have revenue and operating expenditure. I think the amount, I think here that there's possibly there is a need to have a statement of financial performance. Although these are cash environment, one is Okay, you can see that they show two columns. Revenue, budget and actual. Okay, budget and actual. Okay, that's one way to look at it. Whereas in cash flow, you just focus on actual. And of course, the expectation is the amount shouldn't be too big. The differences between amount in financial performance and statement of cash, because the basis of preparing even this financial performance statement of financial performance is cash basis. So just look at example, let's say revenue 264 billion. So in the cash, so the revenue is around 263. Okay, not much different. But of course, there are differences that require reconciliation. Right, operating expenditure. Okay, and then they have revenue surplus. So with that revenue surplus, you can use this to also to cover development expenditures. Development expenditures, okay, very small, supported by or funded by the revenue, so that's resulting overall deficit. Okay, this kind of expected, because generally the big chunk of development expenditure will be financed by the loans. Okay, so you can see this deficit funded by loans. Okay, mainly. All right, so very consistent with our understanding of the flows as we discuss all this while, right? Okay, and memorandum accounts. Okay, as I mentioned, this also as best practice. Okay, according to the international standards, as well as required by the Financial Procedures Act and Constitution. Okay, so they have memorandum of asset. Okay, very strange. It's like memo. That's why this is not part of the. If you look at the accounting system, the accounting system is basically will focus on cash. Okay, cash collection, dues, and others. So memorandum, right? If you look at the account receivable, and there are two items only under the assets, it's account receivable and investments. Okay, in other words, financial assets. Financial assets. Okay, so physical assets, PPE, not reported. Right. So in other words, 126 billion. Okay, is not really representing the total asset owned by the government. I think if it is reported under accrual, it should be a lot higher, because generally you can expect that PPE will be the biggest, if it is in the private sector, and depending on the sector, right? If it is manufacturing, if it is other than financial industry, you can expect that PPE should be can take, and also now maybe intangibles as well, big chunk of the total assets. Whereas here, the focus is on financial assets, account receivables and investments. Okay, and then we look at liabilities, memorandum of liabilities. I think as we discussed, this time in 2019 with the new government, they tried to show comprehensive liabilities. Okay, federal debt, of course, the big part is federal debt, and then PFI. Financial commitments and guarantees. That's why these total liabilities exceed 1 trillion. I think that's the conflict last time, okay, where the new government say, the total liabilities are above 1 trillion, whereas the old government say no, it's below 1 trillion. So in 2019, now it's reported above 1 trillion, but the federal debt is 700. Because others are even here is depending on their maturity. It doesn't mean that government cannot pay. I think if you look at how to tell that we are in a good position in terms of government rating, in terms of their managing their liabilities class. what are the ways that for us to can tell that our government, are they in a good shape managing their liabilities? How to tell? Anyone? What mechanism that possibly can be used, or reference that are available for us to tell? Okay, are they managing the liabilities, the debt level well? So how to tell? You are final year student now. You have a lot of knowledge. Okay, you are very knowledgeable. I know. Any good guess?
Rating, sir.
Exactly. Okay, Karina, ratings. Fish, S&P, okay. Common rating agencies provide that information because these are international investors or international community very concerned with the government performance. Okay. And because they invest in the government securities, okay, they want to know what's happening. Because you're talking about rates, talking about their yield, okay, so all that they are related. So rating is very important because if there is downgrade, okay, some of the investors they have to dispose because they only keep certain level of ratings, right? So I think it's that management is important. Right, and where are we? Okay. I think, but generally, of course, it exceed 1 trillion. But generally, I think the market, I think from the news, they're doing well in managing the debts. Of course, during the COVID also. I think Malaysia, one of the advantage is because we are still pretty much commodity-based economy. Okay, with our petroleum, mainly petroleum. I think that's provide good support, okay, in a way. All right. Okay, we have to read the notes. I think you can read. I think the notes clearly mention. I think the policies they use modified. This one is what is it? Okay, comply with, you can see clearly, accounting policies are in compliance with law, rules and regulations and relating to accounting and financial management of federal government. Okay, so you can see that. Clearly, they make it categorically clear that they are in compliance with the law. And they use concept of consolidated fund, right? Okay, inconsistent with all these items. Right, and then in terms of basis for reporting, they call it modified cash basis of accounting. So clearly mentioned in the annual report. Okay, and then they also have National Trust Fund. Okay, this one is based on MPSAS and accrual accounting. Okay, not modified cash. So you can see that different bases are presented in one annual report. So really you have to study to be able, not as easy as in the private sector, okay, where double entry system and then everything is balanced. Okay, here assets can be presented in different statements. Okay, we don't have that luxury of balance. Debit equal credit. Okay, do you still remember accounting equation? Accounting
Yes,
equation.
sir.
What is the accounting equation? Yes, what is it? Asset
Equals to
Asset, equity.
equal what? Liabilities and
equity.
very simple equation, but they said I think you learned this through accounting theory, isn't it? Without this equation, economy will never grow. Okay, anyway, but we cannot see this use of accounting equation when they prepare these financial statements. So, but hopefully, definitely with the migration to accrual accounting, so you can see this, I think, more complete with the accounting equation. All right. That's one. But here, definitely at agency level, I think because we must, when I discuss, mainly our discussion, because these are federal government financial statement, is at whole government level. Okay, don't get it confused when we discuss at agency. Whereas, example, the National Trust Fund, this can, of course, translated at a specific fund, restricted fund. Okay, but they have their own trustee. Okay, so very specific, and they use accrual, okay, to prepare the financial statement for the fund. Okay, and then, but of course, I mean, we can see that the process of consolidation by the AG, Accountants General Department, how to be able to console all these government agencies, you know, thousands of them, okay, from because federal agencies, if you look at schools, how many thousands of schools, each one of them, they have budget, okay, expenditures. You look at hospitals, okay, thousands of them, right? So think about that. I think you know, they need more accountants in no, we are talking about accounting operation only, okay, recording and you know, data recording and preparing. We're not talking about analysis yet, okay. So there are also huge amount of works. Quite nowadays using accounting system, okay, but we'll see. All right, and yeah, the 12 months ending 31st December, you can see that clearly. We also disclose. Okay, financial statement in ringgit as expected. Okay, budget information also mentioned. That's why I think that's the use in statement of financial performance. Okay. Cash, I think these are the main items to be discussed. Okay, before that, I just, okay, these are investments, you can see that, okay, different investment, but these are consolidation, consolidated. So they have under trust fund investment, general investment, okay, and then you have also read the notes, then you can see the details. All the items, I just highlight quickly. I'm not going to. Right now on the expenditures, okay, supply expenditures particularly. So you can see level of expenditures for every ministry. Okay, I think last time they prepared the detailed reports, but maybe you can check in the website of AG if they provide the detailed report, because normally if let's say Ministry of Works, what's the biggest? Okay, Ministry of Health, 26 billion. So under the Ministry of Health, okay, in the detailed reports they provide, okay, which agency how much they get. Okay. Another you can expect the biggest is Ministry of Education with 55 billion. So if you can see that, and let's say I think sometimes we make comparison. Another generally globally, people talk about okay, government expenditures. So one of them, they will compare defense budget or defense expenditure. So in Malaysia, defense is only 10 billion. Okay, out of 100, almost 200 billion expenditures or 250 billion expenditures, defense only take 5%. Okay. 5%. So the rest are used for other services to serve the entire country. Okay, but in some countries, sometimes their defense expenditure are more than other expenditures. Okay, so that also can tell if the country in the right direction or not. Okay, of course we need a good amount for defense, for securities. Okay, but we need also for other areas. So you can see that Malaysia, because we are developing countries, you can expect that education is very high, and then Ministry of Health, okay, huge amount. Even then, 26 billion, Okay, and we have 30 million Malaysian, so around what, 1,000 per head per year to be used for, let's say 26 billion. 26 billion, right? Divide by 30 million Malaysian. Okay, so around 800 ringgit. So still not much for medical. Well, of course, I mean, they don't charge a price. These are at cost. In average. Okay, another big, okay, contribution to statutory bodies. Okay, statutory, they call it statutory funds, 38 billion. I think that should be included the grant, isn't it? Okay, they call it statutory funds. All right, that's one. Consolidated loan. Okay, we discuss trust. Okay, development definitely, yeah. So you can see that under government trust fund, development always in deficit because of budget to support the the development projects and Malaysian plan. Okay, another source they have other government trust fund. Okay, general deposits. I think we discussed that, the items. Okay, loan account. These are loan account government provide loans account because these are the trust providing loans to all this. Okay, they have also contingencies. So contingency is quite big, almost 1 billion. I think during the time of COVID, because this one is before COVID, isn't it? So we can expect on 2020 possibly contingencies will increase a bit more. Right, this is other funds. You can see that National Trust Fund is the biggest. I think we mentioned that. These are the target recently to use for vaccines because government, running out of money. GST also last time I think they have to refund all this money. The problems of refund, so we can expect very big. Okay, tax refund also very big. Okay, but the biggest is the National Trust. National Trust. Okay, another highlights, memorandums. I think you can see, Okay, another, I think, contingent liabilities. Okay, contingent liabilities, right, because of government guarantee. Okay, you can see that clearly, contingent liabilities. So they book as the liability. Liabilities, tax refund, compensation. Yeah, just on the contingent. So you can see that because contingent liabilities consist of statutory bodies loan and government-linked companies that guaranteed by federal government, like Saving in Bank Simpanan Nasional, EPF, Lembaga Tabung Haji. Okay, these are guaranteed by the government, isn't it? If you put your deposit in Bank Simpanan Nasional, so that deposit guaranteed by the government. Similarly, if you put money in the Lembaga Tabung Haji, okay, so no worries on Tabung Haji will go bankrupt because your saving basically guaranteed by the government. Of course, provided government also in a stable, have that stability, as well as EPF. Okay, also guaranteed. So nothing, if anything happen with the EPF money, okay, but you can see that EPF mainly their investment is local, but they have also mandate to invest overseas. I think to improve their returns. Okay, right. But PNB Permodal National Berhad is not included. So there is risk there. But I think their mandate is to invest locally. Okay, they don't invest overseas where, of course, more returns. Okay, but the risk is higher. Advance to correct contractors. I think this one is loans to liability, contingent liabilities. Okay, maybe loans to. Okay. All right, so I think these are the details. I want to highlight all those items. Any question? Any question, class? No question, eh?
So far so good, sir. InsyaAllah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I'm very pleased. Okay, let me finish off. Okay, I think we discussed all these. I don't have to remind you again. Yeah, just here under memorandum of asset liabilities. Okay, on top of that, they have statutory guarantees. I think we discussed that. It's also part of the government liabilities. Okay, we discussed this. All right, now we move on to the standards, of course, accounting standards. Okay, if it is cash-based, then of course they use, I think there is guideline by the AG, yeah, before they have MPSAS. Okay, accounting standards include MFR. This one is for statutory bodies. For national accounting and reporting from national statutory bodies, they can use MFRS, MPSAS, or MPERS. So 3 sources to comply with SAGA. I think if depending on the nature of the statutory bodies, if the statutory bodies, they don't have much money to, their income generation is quite low, then I think MPSAS will be their option. If they have that, income generation capabilities, maybe MFRS and MPERS are more logical for them. Okay, and if their entities is commercial, towards commercial orientation, I think it's good for them to use MFRS. MPERS is there, even local government they use MPERS, but because MPERS is for what you call it, SMEs, isn't it? Okay, and the requirements of the standard also not as I think what happened is depending on the board, because the statutory bodies are governed by the board of directors. So generally, board of directors, they can demand higher quality of accounting information. So they will either use MPSAS or MFRS, right, to comply with SAGA. They call it SAGA. Okay, via SAGA initiative, accountants and department issues accounting circulars and guidelines for statutory bodies to comply, including use of software and standardized codes for chart of accounts. Okay, SAGA is applicable to federal and state government statutory bodies. Okay, because they are financially autonomous. Okay, they have more freedom. Okay, statutory bodies. So that's why Accountant General need to provide guideline, because at the end, they have to possibly will facilitate in terms of comparability. Okay. And improve in terms of quality of the presentation. That's why Accountant General they issue the SAGA. Okay, one of them is the use of software. I think they can either self-develop or use over the shelf. But the code of the standardized code for chart of accounts, that I think that's very good, so that the comparability between statutory bodies, because generally they use accrual. Okay, SAGA is issued as statutory bodies are autonomous government entities. Okay, let us look at the SAGA guidelines. Okay, this one is based on 2018 SAGA. Okay, you can click, you can have a look, but okay, for discussion, let me share. SAGA, where's yes. Okay, these are guidelines by AG, the Standard Accounting System for Government Agencies, SAGA. So SAGA is Standard Accounting System for Government Agencies. I think to ensure that comparability, that's the main one. Otherwise, the different agencies, they use different system, harmonize, between. Then I think control is quite difficult. I think all in Malay, if I'm not mistaken. Is it in English? All in Malay. just for your information. Okay, these are the system with various modules. Can you see that? Yeah, I think of course at the center of the system is GL, as well as they have budget. They can help. Right, and then the coding. These are the these are the code. Okay, the code, the accounts code, even provided by the. I think quite consistent. Even the codes are possibly, yes. These are for the items. You can see that it's a accrual-based codes. Okay, you have current assets. You have what do you call it? Investment properties. Okay, you have PPAs. You have impairments. You can see that MFRS type of accounts. Okay, investment, advance. Okay, assets in progress. Okay, minority, equity. This one is for performance. All right, so I just highlight this because it's there. I think who knows that in the future you will have an interview with AG, then you can share all this knowledge with them to show that even these have been covered at the university level. Okay, I think, let me, is there any more in the lecture? Okay. Okay, some recent issues in financial reporting in public sector and media, cases of huge impairment of assets in Malaysian statutory bodies, because statutory bodies are using accrual. Tabung Haji in 2019, 1.5 billion impairment losses. I think because of change of government, okay, they use MFRS, okay, whatever. Okay, there are impairments. And then I think this also justify the transfer of the assets. But interestingly, despite of all that restructuring, but how much the transfer to SPV company was 17 billion, isn't it? 17 billion worth of assets. But with that, I'm not sure. Maybe because of the arrangement, it's only conclusive. Because at the same time, there are mechanisms to provide returns to Tabung Haji. But it's just that, is that still the best option for Tabung Haji? Okay. Of course, we're not going to discuss that here. Okay, I just raised. Right, another was Federal Global Venture 2017, 2.2 billion impairment losses. Okay, such impairment possible under accrual-based accounting. So these are maybe just a taste before we move to accrual accounting topics. When the use of accrual, and these are reflecting a better practice with regards to the financial position and financial performance of the government entities and government as a whole. I mean, that's the expectation actually. Yeah? That's the expectation, and definitely, for government servant, of course, if you're talking about losses, if you're talking about transfer, and definitely accrual, I think we discussed in the next class. We should start on 19, isn't it? 19 will be the next class. 19. Okay, anyway, I can always contact through WhatsApp group. All right, the end. Any question? Any question, class? 1, 2, 3. I think one group wanted to have a consultation after this. Okay, so if there is no question, okay. Right, yeah, I think another remarks, I forgot. You, let me just get quick. I think I wanted to ask you that question, but I forgot. With regards to the memo accounts, just quick, I think interesting to observe this sometime. Memo, just one quick observation. Sometimes, I mean, it's good to highlight, but the way to read You cannot read the financial statement of the government as you read the financial statement of companies. They have different bases and different ways of presenting. Just look at, let's say, memo account just now. Okay, one quick. Right, if you look at, so you can see that if memo account, the total asset is, okay, they use the word total assets, so 126 billion, whereas the total liabilities is 1 trillion. If you apply this in the private sector, so it shows that the company is solvent or insolvent. If you have huge liabilities and exceed your assets, the company is solvent or insolvent generally. Unless if they have huge, what do you call it, shareholders fund. Okay, but here the shareholder, I mean the funds is also, yeah, it's only 59 billion cash, 59 billion. Then total assets 126 billion, but the total liabilities is 1 trillion, 10 times more than the total assets and the cash available. So by looking at that, if it is company, so will that company survive?
No.
No.
No, but government can survive, okay, inshallah. Inshallah. So that's how the presentation and the information as it is presented now, okay? As it is presented now. So that's why you have to understand how this works. Whereas for private sector, if these are presented in one balance sheet, definitely the company is insolvent, okay? Because generally, and of course, I mean they can segregate this the debts, okay, according to maturity periods and others. That they have current assets and current liabilities, and that can give more ideas. So here, not separately reported, we cannot tell. But anyway, as I mentioned just now, based on ratings, definitely our government, okay, they manage their debts well. Okay, but if you bring this to companies, I think they will be cooked up, won't be able to survive. Okay, all right, and generally, no financier will try to fund that kind of institutions, but not for government. So government have that capabilities. All right, I think that's just a quick note of that. Okay, so if no question, I will end this. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. For groups